So that brings us to the start, Dave. What got you into doing this? What got you into automotive?
Well, for a long time, like I was always the one keener at home, always interested in, my dad's working on the car. It was the one thing that he used to do that used to intrigue me. I always loved taking stuff apart. I'm the oldest grandson out of a big old-fashioned Italian family, and my mom would always look at me as the oldest grandson, and she'd look at me, take things apart, and say, "You're going to be an engineer. You're going to be an engineer." That's the engineering grandson that he's going to pave the way for all the grandkids. So I went ahead to college to go to engineering technologist program at over here at my local college with the intention of getting my degree in the end. And after my first year, man, it was not for me. You got to remember, I'm a September kid, so I was 18 years old, first year, clueless, just a punk out of high school, and thinking that this was my time. I was so wrong. I got my butt handed to me first year of school, and I didn't have the nuts to tell my parents. Honestly, I didn't. So I dropped out of school, and I knew I wanted to pursue my passion of cars, but I didn't tell my parents right away. So I went to Bud's local dealership, family-run dealership. They've been around forever here in Oakville, and they pretty much had to drag me out of that store. I begged them. I was like, "Listen, I need to." It was a BMW store at the time. I was like, "I need a job here. I will do whatever it takes. I cannot work in an indie shop because if my parents drive by and I show them that I went from university to an indie shop, not that there's anything wrong, but you got to understand, for mom, it had to be something grand. She had to pull
Uh-huh.
up to her son's workplace, and it had to be something special. And here in Oakville, the BMW dealership was that. It's the biggest dealership in town, state of the
Uh-huh.
art, cars on an elevator out front. That was the place. So I actually started off my journey over at BMW at 18 years old, 18 years ago, as a wash bay kid, with
Mhm.
the intention of getting my apprenticeship. So, as I started my
And just
apprenticeship.
to interrupt you real quick, in case people haven't figured it out yet, I've got another Canadian on this show. I got another
Woo!
Canadian on the show. Okay, so we've got stories from America, we've got stories from Canada, we got stories from Latvia. We're global on this thing here. Okay, folks. So have a listen to what Dave's got to say here. So
So
you got into the Buds BMW. So
I
what's
got
that
into
first year
Buzz.
like?
My first year was just wash bay. And I really wanted to get my apprenticeship. I knew I wanted to get my apprenticeship, but it was a big store. There was maybe four other apprentices there, and I knew that was some competition. So I made sure that every car that I touched, that I cleaned, was immaculate. I would even walk out front with a chamois in my back pocket, and if I just cleaned like a 7 Series, I'd walk out front and I would chamois the car off in front of the customer, so just to make it seem like they were getting that extra touch, and then I remember it was about a year, 6 months to a year. I can't remember. This is a long time ago. 6 months to a year. The service manager at the time, I went into his office and I was like, "Listen," his name was Pat. It's like, "Listen, Pat, I need my apprenticeship, man. Like, I really feel like I've proven myself. I need my apprenticeship." And he kind of closed the blinds to his office, and he's like, "Listen, Dave, I'm gonna get you your apprenticeship, but there's a catch." I was like, "Yeah, what's that? I'll do anything. What do you need?" He said, "Well, it's not going to be here. It's going to be at Subaru." Subaru? I want an apprenticeship at BMW. I don't want to be working at Subaru. And he's like, "No, no, no. You got to go work at Subaru." He's like, "And trust me, 5 years from now, you're going to thank me. And you're just going to figure it out yourself. I'm telling you, you're going to thank me. You don't want to get your apprenticeship here." I was like, "Okay." What did I know? 18 years old,
Uh,
new to the industry, no idea. But Pat, if you're listening, and if you're listening to this podcast, thanks, man. Because I've never had a chance to thank him. And it was the best thing he ever did. The dealership, Bud's BMW is a great store. Don't get me wrong, but I was really able to come in and get real experience at Subaru that I wouldn't have gotten at BMW, just because of all the training that you had to do first in order to be able to touch the cars. BMW has an actual university you got to get trained and get through before you're even allowed to
mhm.
put a wrench on the car. And there was definitely more of a pecking order as well too. There was some more senior wash bay guys that with the intention of getting their apprenticeship. So there was some politics and stuff. At Subaru, I was able to hit the ground running. I went in, there was no apprentice there. I was the only apprentice. There was four licensed guys, and they were really keen on having the help. And I was really keen on learning. I really had to show my parents that this is what I wanted to do because they didn't think this is what I wanted to do. So I
Mm-hmm.
had to really, I did everything I could. I stayed late when I needed to stay late. If they needed me to work Saturdays, I stayed Saturdays. But I put in my time, man. That was it. That was the start of my career. That's how I got over to Subaru, and now here we are, 18 years later.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice. And
yeah.
it's a little different up here in Canada. When you start an apprenticeship, there is, you have to be licensed under, at the time it was, I think, let me go back here. You got licensed when? 05? Oh
I
06? Became an apprentice?
I was an apprentice in 2007. Is when I got my apprenticeship.
So
I
you
started
started
at
your
Buds and
apprenticeship.
I started at Buds in '06, and
Uh-huh.
then that first year was roughly a year was my working at the wash bay, and then in '07 is when I got my apprenticeship.
Okay, so you started your apprenticeship the year that I wrote my license. So I got my license in '07. You started your apprenticeship in '07. So you would have been 2011 getting your
Yeah,
license, give or
around
take,
there. Yeah, yeah, sounds about right. Yeah,
right? So did you get your license or did you get your red seal?
I got my license
Nice.
and red seal.
Okay, so
I passed my CFQ.
you passed your CFQ.
Yeah,
Did you get the national license or did you get the Ontario license?
Ontario license.
So you got the Ontario license. Okay, so you
Right,
didn't get the red seal, but you are a licensed mechanic.
correct.
Okay, cool. So typically, now yours might have been. I think they changed the hours a little bit. I think they brought it down.
It was like forty
When I
thousand
signed it,
hours, I think, as your apprenticeship. I think was that sound about right?
it's supposed to equate to just shy of 4 years. So I think
Right.
they had it to 7,200 hours. Is the
Okay, that sounds
average
about right.
person in theory works 2,000 roughly 2,000 hours a year times four is
Okay.
8, so it was a little bit less, and then they quantified your time in school as a specific amount of hours, blah 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 blah, that end up being on top of that, and I think that's why they dropped it at 8 7. Anyway, too much math, not relevant. Anyway, you get your license in 2011 at the Subaru, and it sounds like you've been at the Subaru ever since.
Ever since, man. Ever since. It's my
Nice,
home. It's my home. It's very rare. Very rare. But
exceptionally
the
so.
very rare. And I've had a lot of opportunities. I've had opportunities to go to Porsche. I've had opportunities to go back to BMW. I've had a lot of opportunities to work at some other luxury brands. But I don't know if it has something to do with the culture at Buds per se, because it's fantastic. Like I really, really enjoy working for the company. But also the brand. I've always just loved the cars. They're super reliable. The brand is great to work for. They really listen to the technicians. They value technicians, which is super rare these days. Like when I submit like a quality management report, there's actually a quality management report for serviceability with Subaru. So I can actually say, let's just say, the warranty time, the spark plug re-enry is zero point 0.4, but it really takes an hour because you got to remove the ECM, and the ECM's in the engine bay. I can actually submit a quality management report for serviceability to send over to Subaru Japan so they can review that and either change the warranty time or, when they're redesigning the car for a new model update, they'll take that into consideration. So being able to have that dialogue with a brand is, to me, is huge. Even regardless if they actually make that change or not, the fact that they're willing to come in and have those conversations with me, to
And
me,
that's interesting
speaks.
for you to say that.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's the first time I've ever heard that. And anybody listening right now out there in Subaru land that's listening to this, at other Subaru stores, I want to hear your experience with this same thing as well. And folks out there, I've worked at domestic, I've worked at a little bit of import, but I have never been able to file any report saying, "Hey, this is whacked." From a
yeah,
pure technician standpoint, whether it's really bad or just it's slightly off, but being able to legitimately give feedback without having to ask to get feedback, without having to jump through hoops to give feedback, just means that people are more likely to be heard. And then I'm assuming that should any of that come back, like they want to have a conversation, you can have a conversation with these people.
yep,
You can be like Now, in that same time frame, have you been flat rate that whole time? And
I
what are you
was.
doing today?
Yep. So I was flat rate my whole time. As soon as I got licensed, I went flat rate.
Okay.
And, I did very well. I loved being flat rate. A lot of people don't like it. I was on the other end. I was very organized. My time management skills were always on point. So for me, it was something that I excelled at. So to go to salary plus bonus, which is the structure I'm at now, was a bit of a change.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot different where you have to kind of rely on other people for your paycheck, whereas if you're a flat rate technician, you just have to worry about yourself. But the
Mm-hmm.
reward you get in return when you kind of are able to kind of sail that ship in the direction that you want it and have a say on how the business is run, to me kind of outweighs those. Like when I was kind of going through my pros and cons, it's like, do I really want to take on this responsibility? Now that I'm almost a year in, like I'm still very, very junior, very, very junior. I got a lot to learn. I've barely been in this role for a year. So, um, first of all, like again, I'm super flattered that you chose me to come on this show because there are a lot other senior guys that I see on LinkedIn and that I talk to at shops and at meets that have been foremen for 15 years that might have some better information that I'm able to provide. But,
So I'm going to stop you right there.
yeah,
One, there is a good, bad, or otherwise. There's a reason why someone or some people chose you to be in a role as shop foreman.
right,
Period. There are reasons for you to be there, and all of those reasons are positive. Might there be some negatives? Absolutely. We're
for
only
sure.
human. But
Absolutely.
there's reasons for you to be there. However, there isn't going to be someone's opinion that's more valuable than yours. And just because someone's been in the role for 5, 10, 15 years versus your one doesn't mean it's going to be even more valuable. Perspective is more valuable to me, and I believe to a lot of folks that actively listen, because it gives them an opportunity to see things from a different angle.
Right,
They may not see things the way you see things, and being able to see it through your lens allows them to make better decisions because they have more ammunition to get to the target. Like at the end of the day, we all have the same fundamental target. Everybody on the
right,
shop floor, we're productive. Whether you're a
right,
working or non-working foreman, at the end of the day, the goal is to have the entire shop be as busy as you possibly can without it being chaotic, so that everybody's making money, and more importantly, in terms of the business, you're excelling in producing some high quality customer experiences for your guests. At the
right,
end of the day, if you're able to produce 150% every day and your comeback rate is like 1% or less on a whole as a the shop team, not as an individual each, but as a
right,
shop team, you have a low comeback rate, you're 120, 130, 150% across the board in the shop. Everybody's making money. And had this discussion, I don't remember who I said it to this past week, but typically I find in shops that I've done the renters wellness survey for, the shops that don't have and I'm squirreling here, but I apologize, folks. Shops that don't have a high enough door rate also don't have high enough level technicians in their service bays, which also means they're not doing good enough diagnostic and repair work, which also means the service advisors are not trusting that the work is going to get done, so they're going to undersell. And or you have a circle in the service drive where if the door rate isn't high enough and you don't have good quality sales folk in the service drive, the technicians start to starve because they're not selling enough or not selling well enough and not closing enough. Like it's a vicious cycle. We need
it
folks
is.
to all understand that money is important, but customer experience is paramount. But they're not exclusive; they're
Right,
mutual.
right.
And at some point, you have to think about. I'm desperately trying to think about who said it this week, and it's going to come to me well after we finish recording. But they said,
Usually how it
at
works.
what point is a door rate too high?
Right.
And my phrase to that was, if people aren't complaining about your fees, you're not charging enough.
That's right.
Now,
Yeah.
that can sound greedy, but to be honest, it's the truth. If nobody's complaining about your rates, your rates aren't high enough. When
Man,
people
just
start to complain about your rates, stop.
they need to be, man. Like the cost of the tooling that you need now in order to properly diagnose is just astronomical. It really is hard to keep up. it's, you know, I know it from the front end, from the consumer standpoint, yeah, they come in and they see, you know, these big numbers. It's not cheap, you know, but to fix a BMW to Land Rover, Jaguar, man, the equipment involved is so expensive, and the training to get these technicians through school to efficiently solve these problems is so expensive, and the cost of not having the technicians there in the shop so they can go do the training is so expensive, you know. So it really is. You're right. You nailed it. It's cyclical. It's really, really hard. And you're right. If the rate isn't door rate isn't if they're not complaining about the door rate, it's not high enough. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. What like the three? There's a couple of things. So we talk about technician shortage on a regular basis. We've talked it on 10 Mastery. I've talked it in clips and coaching and mechanic minutes, and I haven't yet talked it so that I'm blue in the face and kicking a dead horse. I don't think, because it's not talked about enough relevantly.
Yeah.
You have a need to have your door rate be appropriate for your encashment area of whatever, whether it's an independent store, a franchise independent store, or a dealership. It needs to be appropriate for your demographic, geographic area. Yes.
That's right.
At the same time, like I said, if people aren't complaining about it, it's not high enough. The second part of that is it needs to be high enough so you can pay technicians enough to get A-level players across the board as much as humanly possible. It's
That's
very
right.
difficult to get an A player, period.
Very hard.
But you need to be able to charge enough so that you can pay them up properly so they stay. Because
Yeah.
one thing is leadership, second thing, paycheck. But that becomes a thing. The second side of that is your salesmanship in the service drive. If you aren't charging enough on your door rate, there are service advisors who are paid in bulk for the most part on commission based on the CP sales. If the door rate's not high enough, they're not going to make enough money on their bonus. So you're not going to get quality A players in your service drive. And that also goes to, you need to have quality players in your service drive, because if they can't sell, nobody in the shop eats either.
Totally.
Like, the last thing you need is somebody going, I'm just coming in for an oil change. Okay, I'll write the oil change. It's got
Totally.
65,000 kilometers on it. It needs a brake
Brake
service. It needs brake
flush.
fluid. It needs
Absolutely.
alignment. Now, obviously, you don't want to be doing a wallet flush on somebody who hasn't been there before. But at the same time, if you're not appropriately selling in the service drive, we can't appropriately sell clothes and do well in the shop.
That's right.
Right? It's and vice versa. If we don't have enough good work in the shop, why are we working for pennies and peanuts when all they're doing is writing an oil change and a customer concern? Like, my goodness.
Totally. But and again, I really do believe that's kind of where, you know, having a foreman, someone who kind of lead that ship and kind of bring another avenue to that shop, another outlet, another, like, there's a lot of things that I've brought to the table over this year that have really just helped the morale and just made the place a way more enjoyable place to work. You know, because I'm not flat rate, I can spend a lot more time training the apprentices. So, you know, when they aren't slinging oil changes, they aren't just slinging tires, I can pull them over. I can show them how to do stuff. I can show them how to properly diagnose. I can show them how to use an oscilloscope. I can show them how to use things that you aren't able to use on a day-to-day basis, so that when they get their ticket, they come out of the gate flying. And one of the other things that, I don't know if you knew about this, but have you heard about this new apprenticeship grant that they've just announced, the interest-free loans?
No,
Canada
not
has?
interest-free loans. I had the luxury of doing 8 weeks for motorcycle level 1 this time last year, and they told me that when you now in motorcycles a little different. It's 2 levels, not 3,
Right.
for block release here in the great state of Canada, more specifically Ontario. It was $1,000 for completing level 1.
Correct.
And it was just, here you go,
Yep.
which I applied for and told no, you can't have, which is interesting because apparently everybody was supposed to get it. I digress.
Yep.
And then
That's interesting.
$1,000 for completing level 2,
Yep.
and then
Correct.
I think it was supposed to be $1,000 for getting your ticket. I think
2,000.
effectively, and it was $2,000 for getting your ticket.
Correct.
So it was like $4,000 total, and it wasn't loans, it was a grant. It was here.
Well, the government of Canada, as of I think it's 2 weeks ago, they just announced that every apprentice, once you graduate, every year of school that you graduate, you are allowed to borrow $4,000 a semester, interest free, that you are given 6 years to pay off after you write your CFQ and pass. So think about, this is something that I've really been super excited about. You know, I don't agree with all the decisions our government makes, but this is one that I struggled with. You know, you're in your apprenticeship, you're not making a lot of money. At the time, right now I got built-in boxes, so no one has to buy a box. But at the time, I had to buy a box, I had to buy my tools, I had to buy, and you're barely making money. You know, if you're a shop that's getting incentives, you're getting kickbacks.
Ramen steaks at 1920 trying to turn wrenches because you got $3,000, $4,000 bottom box, and you got $10,000 worth of tools in it.
Right?
That you're paying 19% interest to the Snap-on guy every week. That's at $50 payment every week that he comes in. $49.99 of it is interest, and it's like it's just stacking and stacking and stacking up. Having a 0% interest loan of $4,000 basically 3 times in 3 years allows you.
Well, the apprenticeship actually now is they've actually added a 4th year now of school for EV, which is new as of this year. So now automotive apprenticeship will be 4th year. There's a 4th year for EV training now. So you're actually eligible for up to $16,000 of tools. Now I haven't run the math on 16 because I just found out that there's an additional year when I just sent my apprentice to school. So I was basing my math off 3 years. So check this out. So if you get $4,000 a year, you get $4,000, that's $12,000, right? Mm-hmm. You also get $4,000. You still get your grants. You get $1,000 first year, $1,000 second year, $2,000 when you graduate. You still get that.
Yep.
So now you can put that towards your tool loan. So let's just say you've maxed out your $12,000. You're now at $8,000. If you were to factor in $8,000 over 6 years to pay off, I think it equated to like $43 a paycheck every other week.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, to me, that just, like, what an opportunity. You have the opportunity now to have a full set of tools. And let's not forget, when you're an apprentice and the Snap-on guy hands you that fancy sheet of all those tools that you could knock off and buy while your apprenticeship, the forged tools are 40% off. Let's not forget about that, right? So you're getting all the deals while you're in your apprenticeship. Now you have the ability to come out, you know, man, you got a nice set of, let's just say you max that out, $12,000, and you don't have to buy a box. Josh, you know,
and that's even more benefit here in Canada too. So I'm not sure if there's any states that have these, but we can do, you know, the T2200. You can get, there are some things that you can write off, but when you're an apprentice, you can write off. I think the equivalent is 50% of the purchase.
Correct.
Goes towards your income.
Correct.
So if, let's say you make $40,000 a year and you buy $20,000 worth of tools, 10,000 of it goes right towards your income. So now you're making $30,000 instead of 40.
That's right.
So you still gotta eat shit on the other half.
That's
you
right.
Get to write off half as an apprentice. Now they don't factor in loans and things like that. That's, you know, if you spend that per year, blah 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 blah, and then, you know, the tax folks can reiterate and do due diligence on that. But fundamentally speaking, you get more of the tool written off as an apprentice.
Correct.
There are deals, at least here in Ontario, like you said, some of the tools are 40% off depending on, you know, where you are, where you go. I know if we go to Georgian College, you know, there's a Snap-on guy right at Georgian College where you can go in and it's like, I want these things, and it's 40% off.
Amazing.
You know, toolboxes are 40% off. Now, obviously, you got to buy that as an apprentice, and it's a big nut, and you got to figure out your financial logistics. But being able to do that as an apprentice is amazing. So
yeah, absolutely. Like now, like let's just say, like now you go flat rate. You get your CAQ, you're flat rate. You're not making $16 to $20 an hour as an apprentice. You're now making up, you know, let's just say a beginner flat rate, $32 an hour, entry level flat rate technician, right? $32 an hour. You're making 8 hours a day at $32. You got to pay $47 every 2 weeks. Come on. And these are, and let's not forget, these are tools that you need anyways. This isn't just tools these are tools that you need, you know, but now you don't have to wait till you're making.
There's a difference though. You have to take into account, and this is where we're going to do some math for folks that listen globally here. You're in Oakville, you're in GTA, so you're in high cost of living areas, very, very, very high cost of living areas. So that $32 an hour sounds like a lot of money to some folks. Even if you're generating 8 hours, 10 hours a day, $32 an hour, 10 hours a day, 50 hours a week, $1,500, $1,600 a week. That sounds like a lot of money, right? That's $6,400. You're $74K a year. That sounds like a lot of money. Yep. For GTA, right? A hot dog's $15.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
To hold the key to your apartment cost you $20 a
uh,
minute,
I know.
right? That's conceptually in the city, it's not the same. Like if you walk down the street here, the local dealers are still trying to hire licensed techs for $23 an hour,
Wow.
right? It's not the same everywhere. And you go to some of our folks down in the States, and unfortunately, when I'm doing, job placements and I'm doing those kinds of things, I'm doing research for somebody I'm coaching, or trying to help somebody find a job in a place, and I see dealerships in, say, Tennessee, or I see, Utah or whatever, and I see them trying to hire quote unquote 5 years experience, and that's where, sorry, again, scoring a little bit here, trying to, I'm real hyped up right now, folks. If you hadn't fucking told me. But these places are, I consider an apprentice, whether you actually have a quote unquote apprentice in your state, province, whatever, anybody that's 5 years or less.
Right.
If you're asking for somebody with 5 years or more experience, you're looking for a quote unquote licensed tech. You can't expect high quality anything at $18 an hour
No, yeah.
for a flat rate technician. You are
No
not going
way.
to get quality anything at $18.
No, definitely not.
Especially when I do my due diligence and that same store has got $190 an hour door rate.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but if you
Yeah.
want somebody who is not going to give you comebacks, who is going to listen, who is going to communicate, and is going to learn and grow with you as a brand and as a company, $18 an hour doesn't cut it. Especially with 5 years under the belt and probably $20,000 to $30,000 worth of tools.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. You're going
Not
to get
gonna
somebody
happen.
from bottom of the barrel,
That's right.
right?
Yep.
Happens here in Canada too, though.
It
Right?
does.
There,
Of
there
course it does.
happens. I watched a advertisement, and Russell Wickham is great for this, because he is absolutely ruthless with the job ads, and I think he made a post earlier in the week. It's like there are dealerships literally copying other dealerships' job ads that were already horrendous. Like,
Yeah.
you're plagiarizing shit work to begin with. Like, come on, folks. But here in Canada, I've seen dealers in the city trying to post like $23 an hour, $25 an hour downtown Toronto. Like, come on, folks.
Yeah,
Like,
it's so
get
funny,
your
man.
head
Like,
out of your ass.
I know that's,
I have two questions.
yeah, that's
One,
it.
well, not two questions. I have one question and one statement. I forgot to mention. So, not this week, but the past week, SDL folks that are listening will already know. But those that weren't part of SDL or aren't part of SDL won't. Robert Charbonneau has been around the automotive business for a very, very, very long time. He's been in thousands of stores, coached tens of thousands of people across service for decades. This man has a monthly, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly checklist that he's been compiling over those years, and it's now available if you go on to his website. So, like yourself in shop foreman, but service managers and shop foreman and team leads can utilize this spreadsheet to identify areas for things that you do on the shop walk. So whether it's checking tire machines or checking for air leaks or whatever the case may be, he's got like a 60, 65, I think it actually is longer than that, identify a list that you go over to make sure things are getting checked and so on and so forth. So if you want that check sheet,
I would love that.
you don't have to write and go on to Gearhead Training, gearheadtraining.com, I think it is off the top of my head, or find Robert Charbonneau on LinkedIn and reach out to him, and he'll tell you where to find it exactly. And he'll send you that sheet, and use that to your advantage so that you can find the granular stuff. And you can add all kinds you want. You can change it, whatever, for your shop.
That's great. Yeah, that's an amazing resource.
It allows you to find the things in your shop to help things like that. Two, you mentioned here a minute ago or so ago that you defined your targets for the month. The team knows the targets for the month. You calculate days off. Do you have a capacity spreadsheet that you use to plug in all of the numbers for your time off and calculate what your capacity for the month is, and then set your target to that? Do you have one of those?
We do. We have a capacity target every month. We do. So we know exactly our threshold of our shop and what we could take in on a week-to-week basis, day-to-day basis. We know exactly where we're at. Even in terms of, we have all of our skills listed within our software that we use at work. We use PBS. So we have all of our
Mm-hmm.
skills listed, so we know exactly who can get what job, dependent on their skills and their training that technician has received. ODP, ozone depletion, or EV.
Awesome. So there's two more things that I want to bring up. One, if you're listening out there and you do not know what your shop capacity is, whether you're a technician or team leader, shop foreman, maybe you have access to that information, maybe you don't. But if you want to calculate it and you want an easy way to do it, I do have a shop capacity spreadsheet that's on Google. That if you want it, reach out to me, leader@justworkhard.com, or DM me on LinkedIn. I will send you the link for it. You can download it, you can use it, you can modify it to your liking, but it's there for you to calculate shop capacity. Because if you don't know what your shop capacity is, you're probably not booking appropriately. And if you're in a shop
Correct.
foreman, team lead position, you're not informing your service advisors or your service manager properly to know what the actual team can do. And if you're in, say, you're in a slightly larger independent franchise store that has, say, more than 4 technicians, you want to really know what your capacity is. That way you can book appropriately. The last thing you want to do is have 15 cars in the drive at 7 o'clock in the morning and have the entire shop empty because there's no cars at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. There's a
Correct.
whole nother conversation to be had about that, about leads and about service leads, and I can bring up fixed ops marketing, but that's a whole different thing. We're talking about capacity. If you're meeting your capacity, great. If you're not meeting your capacity, there are other opportunities like fixed ops marketing. Getting to the third step, there's more. If you are in a position like Dave and you've recently become a shop foreman, reach out to me, reach out to our good friend Richard Mueller, reach out to Stefan DeSantos, reach out to Dave, ask questions.
Absolutely.
Please, for the love of God, ask questions. You don't know what you don't know, and until you ask questions that have conversations like we're having right now, you are not going to learn stuff. Because
Totally.
as a shop foreman, you have no one to learn from.
Nope.
No
I
one.
was I was very fortunate. Like when I got this role, one of the things they kind of expected me just to go in. They thought it. My general manager, we have a really really good relationship. He trusts me a lot, and I trust him. And when I took this role, I think he just was like, "Dave, you got this. You got this. Don't worry about it." But for me, that was a huge, huge, huge change. Huge change. Like I was, stressing out, and like, again, when you're flat rate and you're in a shop, in a high volume shop, and there's other people out there, you don't really know what other people truly think of you when now somebody who is your equal is now going to go over top, right? Like you don't know, you don't know how that is going to be received in the shop. So I stressed out a lot about that. But so one of the things that was important to me was I actually went next door back to BMW. So Subaru was right beside the BMW store. So I went right back to BMW, and I talked to the foreman over there. And these are guys that have been doing this for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And they gave me some really, really, really good advice. Really, really good advice. Some of the stuff that you're touching base on now: shop capacities, communication, morale, cleanliness, small things that you could do on a day to day that you should be really taking in and taking account every single day as you're walking through the shop to help you and your shop better yourselves and better your future and make yourselves more efficient. You know, and like I said, they kind of dumbed it down. They made it seem like the job was really, really easy. And again, it was definitely it was, definitely.
You know what you say? They made it sound like the job was easy, and I
Oh
can immediately
man.
hear in the back of my head, Richard is going, "What are they talking about?
Oh
Who's
man.
talking about this job is easy? It's probably the second
Oh
hardest
man.
job in the business because
Very
most
hard.
shop foremen have negative authority. Like they don't have a little bit of authority. They have negative authority, meaning if they do something that even remotely sounds like making a decision, for the most part, they get canned or it's
Yeah.
immediately reprimanded because I didn't tell you to do that.
It's so
So
true.
Richard, I immediately I know Richard is laughing. I immediately know he's laughing, but I digress.
Yeah.
So let's holy shit, we've been on this for a while. That's awesome. Lots of good tidbits in there. We gotta get this answered because I know you've got after a year you've got something.
Yeah.
What is your piece of advice? What is your piece of advice for a technician out there to be either happier, healthier, or more productive?
Make make time for yourself. Make time for yourself. Take a break. Take a break. I see so many technicians, flat rate technicians that are just grinding, and they leave and they are beaten and they are battered and they do not want to come in to work the next day. Take a lunch. Take a break. Walk away. Go for a drive for 20 minutes. Regroup. Like, especially when those times are busy, like, greed is real. Greed is real. And I get it. When it's busy time, you got to take it when it comes. But just try and give yourself 15, 20 minutes a day to grab a bite, relax for a few seconds, evaluate your day, call your wife, do whatever you need to do just to blow some steam. It is not easy. It is not easy. I have always been very fortunate. I don't have much of a commute to my work. I value my lunch so much. So much. And honestly, looking back, I really do think it's a key to my success. Whether it's just something to, when you have the same lunch every single day, you have the same time every single day, it's easier for the advisors to sell the work. They know that you're not there from 12 to 1. So automatically, there's not like you're about to take a bite out of a sandwich and the advisor's like, hey, this customer's waiting. It's 12:30. They want their breaks done in a half an hour. No. My lunch is 12 to 1. I've taken my lunch every single day. Every single day. And I think that's really something that technicians don't do enough of. Honestly, it is a high stress, high volume job. No, but it's not sustainable. You can't be going like that all day and not take a break. It's physically demanding.
No.
It's mentally demanding. And I
brought up burnout on 10 mil, man.
Yeah.
Like, burnout's a thing.
Burnout is real. It's real.
If you've never truly experienced it, right? If you've never truly experienced burnout, you don't know what to look for until it's too late, and then you're burned out, and then you don't know what to do. And unfortunately, I hear, I'm hearing some horror stories as the more, more conversations I have, the more people I talk to. There's some folks out there that they go from like super high production to burnout to depression to suicide in the span of like 90 days.
Absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely.
it's really bad.
Yeah.
And you are one bad decision as and this is mostly for flat rate, not all just flat rate, because there's lots of hourly folks out there suffering in their own silence, because they're either stubborn or don't know or are ignorant to what is available to them to get themselves better or get themselves in a better position or improve their environment. But most seem to be one bad decision away from really bad shit.
Totally.
And it is often blamed on the industry, and it is very, very often blamed on flat rate. And you and I are in the same boat. Flat rate is awesome. But, and that should be the phrase. Y'all know, you heard it last week when I released the latest episode of 10 Mil Mastery. There are merch out there for wrench turners. Flat rate sucks, change my mind is now on hoodies and t-shirts. You can buy in the link below. But flat rate is awesome. But, and the but is having a high value leader like Dave, like Zach Burkle, like Joe Chambers, like Ray Hernandez, like Roger Gutierrez. People who care, people who want you to succeed, people who are writing down your goals and helping you write out an action plan to achieve those goals, whether it be personal, whether it be financial, whether it be whatever the case may be. These people care. You are never going to succeed in flat rate unless you have that kind of a leader.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, it's hourly, right?
That's
Hourly
right.
is the way to go in any other position, because flat rate is too damn hard to do without having someone who can actively support you. Period.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Totally.
That's my rant about flat rate today. So on that note, Dave, I very much appreciate what is getting awfully close to 90 minutes. My goodness, these folks are going to get a handful. It may not, 90 minutes may not make the final cut, but my goodness, this has been some great stuff. I really appreciate your time.